somebody that I admired very much and was the kindest person in the world.
She never complained. She never stopped in rehearsal. She never marked in rehearsal.
The other extraordinary thing about her was that she was an amazing human being.
There was a very quiet dignity and sense of humour. And I think the sense of humour was really a very strong point of her personality.
One of her famous words was tenacity.
She was a lovely, lovely person. When I joined the company, she always said, "My gosh, I'm double your age, so you've got a long way to go." Yeah? She was kind. She was generous in her talking to the young, and always with a little giggle at the end.
Everything was perfect. The hair, the makeup when she came into class. There was no tat around her, no leg warmers, no cover-ups. You saw, when she was in class, you saw everything.
She knew how to diffuse a situation by laughing, really, and giggling.
Yeah. But she was a beautiful person as well.
And that person was so real. She was full of fun. She had a wonderful sense of humour. She loved her life, and she conveyed that so that we all could see that there was nothing of a chore about this job that she was doing.
Margot was to have a huge effect on my life, unbeknownst to any of my family. In 1946, I was taken with my family to see Sleeping Beauty. She asked to see us after the show. And we went round, and I was fascinated by her ravishing face. She was in a dressing gown, in a pink dressing gown, but I'd never seen anybody in stage makeup before. And I can remember the eyelashes and the colour of the red of the lipstick and that wonderful, wonderful smile. She was totally natural with us and very, very warm. And much later on, we became really, really good friends.
She never treated me any differently than, with sort of the most fantastic respect and, on the stage and off.
I think even although she treated one as an equal, I always felt, look, I'm much younger than you. I sort of looked up to her all my life, and I never became best friends, I never felt, she was a different generation, and God, I admired her so much, but I didn't feel that I could push it and be chummy.
Being in a Glenn Tetley ballet with Rudolph one night, my legs were wrapped around Rudolph's body, and I knew I couldn't stand up. So I crawled into the wings. And right there in the wings was Margot. And with that, she straightened my leg out. And then, lo and behold, she stood with her weight on the back of my thigh and moved her foot across the back of my thigh. Well, of course, the cramp eased off. And she said, "Is that better?" And I said, "Yes, thank you very much." And with that, I went back on stage.
All the girls had to share one big dressing room upstairs. And I was sitting next to her. On my best behaviour, but she just got on with it, and she was just one of us, and that was it.
I virtually shared a dressing room in the old days with Margot, and we were quite close. She was like a sister to me.
Margot was always the star who would come in, and it wasn't till later on that I got to know her really well when I was asked to dance with her.
I saw her first of all in Symphonic Variations, and then, which was fantastic. I mean, I'd never actually seen a ballet before. I'd come from the north of Scotland, and all I had ballet-wise was the red shoes. I was very, very young when I partnered her, 20 or something like that, and she treated me like an equal. Yeah. She didn't sort of say, "Aren't you a lucky boy, you're dancing with me," and all that kind of thing.
And people would say, "Oh, what was it like?" Well, I have to say, I don't want to say terrifying, but you are putting your hands round the waist of a legend. And she was always very pleasant and very iconic, but I never really felt quite at ease. I have to be honest by saying that. It was such a momentous occasion.
I was called into the office immediately. I was terrified. I went down to the studio. I think it was in the Garden Room 1, as it was then. And Fred was there, and Soames, and Margot, and me. And Fred explained what he wanted to do. And he said, the first thing I want you to do is to take her by the wrists and throw her to the floor. So I took her by the wrists and I sort of gently lowered her to the floor, this great legend, because he didn't like that anyway. I plucked up the courage and flung Margot to the floor. She thought it was great. Fred liked it, and that's how it all started. And she was so delightful, because I was 28 at the time, and she was so kind, and so she could sense I was nervous, and she made life so easy.
My first experience with Margot was she and Michael Soames came to South Africa in about 1955 to do Swan Lake second act and Diverts. And she appeared to come and look at the stage because it was an open air stage on a lake. And she appeared in this immaculate suit and little pillbox hat.
She had incredible sense of design and taste, and immaculate sense of what she looked best in. And that was born in her, probably through Sir Frederick Ashton, her choreography, the great design she had done for her with the ballet.
And she was beautiful, and she was dressed beautifully, and she was incredibly gracious.
She was always immaculate. Even in the rehearsal room, outside the rehearsal room, you never saw her untidy, you never saw her looking a mess.
The designers loved her, Dior, and then Saint Laurent came around. So always she appeared absolutely immaculate.
Balenciaga, the House of Cartier, you name it, Chanel, they would give her ballroom dresses to appear in before they went on the catwalks for free, because they wanted her as a model to represent at ambassador parties when we danced all over the world, to show off their new designs. Yeah. That's how elegant she was.
The boys, I mean, they were all totally in love with her, I think. And she loved having boys around, They would all look admiring at her and stand around looking at her. And she would be a little flirtatious with them all.
I think the first time I saw her was when the Royal Ballet were on tour in San Francisco when I was a ballet student. So that would have been in the early 60s.
I became a student, we did extra work, and my first terrifying experience was in Ondine, and us young fledgling students were used to catch her when she was thrown over from the boat. And we had to be on a mattress behind the scenes, and she came from a great height head first, and we had to catch whatever we could part of her. Some nights it was massive giggles because she enjoyed it, and maybe some nights because a part of her body was grabbed rather hard. It was not quite as friendly reception as she marched off stage. So I remember Margot as the epitome, as the great star, almost the queen of the Royal Ballet, and all that went with it, the mystery. It's something I think now today that's gone completely, and I miss it, and I'm glad that I grew up in that era where the stars had a mystery about them.
Margot Fonteyn was a bigger name than the Royal Ballet in America and Japan at that time.
She said, I never read reviews, because she said if someone writes a eulogy of how beautiful I had done something, that would be in my mind for the next performance, and it would destroy the performance.
Well, I came in contact with her when I joined the Royal Ballet in 1966. First of all, I didn't expect Dame Margot Fonteyn to be on the tube, but that's it. It's practicality. If it's the quickest way to get there, she'll do it. She had no qualms about superiority in any way. She was sitting on the tube, and she was sitting right on the edge of the tube, very upright like this. And I looked across and I went, Dame Margot. She said, yes, Wayne Sleep, what do you want? I said, nothing. I said, but don't you ever relax? Why don't you lean back? You've had a long rehearsal. She said, me? I never do that. She said, I'm always sitting on the edge of my seat. I said, why? She said, well, I'm ready for class and bar work. I'm already in the right position.
And then in January 1990, I was doing my first performances of Swan Lake, and I got a surprise coach, and that was Margot. And that was quite an experience I'll never forget. I knew straight away this was quite an extraordinary opportunity to have her one-on-one in the studio. And she straight away, you know, where I was worried, because I think she'd seen a stage call of me or something. And I thought she was going to correct mainly the choreography or my technique. But she went straight into the artistry, the storytelling of the ballet, and really making sense of the choreography and why it was designed and what the choreography was telling you.
I don't think she had a bad bone in her body.
She always wanted to please people. She never wanted to let anybody down, and I think that was basically her mantra. No matter what kind of pressure she was put under, she felt obligated to come up to that responsibility, to give what was expected of her.
And the one thing I do remember about her is that she was a very quiet, reserved person, but when she came onto stage, she became a totally different person, a star.
What a amazing attitude to life she had. That's something that everybody should admire and think about.
The privilege of being close to her and working with her and having her call you by your name. And yes, I mean, it was just immense, the impression she made on me and the effect she had on my life.
So I really knew her more in the studio and on stage than outside. I know in Australia, I was very surprised. She was quite private, but she did invite me at the Siebel Townhouse Hotel before a show to join her for lunch, to have a steak. Maybe she probably thought I was malnourished or something.
Yes, and you know, she'd come to dinner and she said, I'd say, Margot, is there anything you don't eat? And she'd say, yes, eggs. Don't put an egg in front of me. I don't eat eggs. So I don't know how many people know that.
We often used to, even when she'd given up dancing, and she used to come back and stay at the Dorchester. She'd have a suite at the Dorchester, and she'd phone up and say, I'm here, come and have dinner. And we'd go to the Dorchester and we'd have a meal together. But inevitably, the whole evening was just laughing, really.
After the show, there was a glass of wine, and I was standing next to Dowell, who appeared, and I said to Dame Margot, what was it in the end? Was it your teachers? Was it Sir Frederick Ashton choreography? Was it anything like that? And she said, no, Wayne. Looked me in the face, and I did. She said, it was tenacity, Wayne, staying power.
One watched her and saw the way she worked, saw her dedication, her tremendous commitment to hard work, day after day after day. Yes, I mean, it was just immense, the impression she made on me and the effect she had on my life.
Margot was certainly had that work ethic.
She never lost her temper. She was always calm. And she just got on with it, really.
I never saw her with a real down moment, I have to say. Her composure was fantastic.
You know, the other extraordinary thing about her was that she was an amazing human being.
I think it's the humility that she was a very natural person anyway, but there was a regality about her. She looked special, and she was equally special, but she was incredibly humble at the same time.
You know, she kept the standard so long and through so much. So, you know, just her fortitude and strength of mind, something that every young dancer, every old dancer should remember.
And in a way, in her personal life, you see, she had to stick to it because her husband became a paraplegic.
When her husband was shot in Panama and he came over to Stoke Mandeville Hospital, she learned to drive a car.
Every night she would go down to Stoke Mandeville Hospital to see him. And then the next morning she would be on the bar in class at 10:15 a.m. So she was getting up at 5 and 6 in the morning, sometimes performing that evening as well.
She was the ultimate professional. I'm not so sure how happy she was dancing on into her late 50s, early 60s. It must have been difficult for her having to continue to work, you know, to keep her husband safe, and I hadn't really thought that, you know, what a amazing sort of sacrifice she made by just working until the end.
Didn't complain, I mean, you know, how you know, somebody like that whose husband was totally paralyzed, could hardly talk, you know, that she dealt with all that. That's the reason why she went on dancing for so long, to support him financially.
In a way, she was loyal to a fault. When she could have gone on her own and been quite successful with money and everything she'd achieved in the world, she decided to stick by her husband for his last days. She went to retire on a farm in Panama where they were raising livestock. And a friend of mine said to her, Dame Margot, but are you happy? She said, you know, I'm the happiest I've ever been. Little did I know that raising cattle would give me such joy.
I can remember one instance when she just got chickens. When she adored her cows, she said, oh, the cows just walked through the house. And we said, are you happy with that, Margot? I love them. She said, oh, I love them. She said, but I've just got chickens. She was so excited. And, you know, we thought, oh, God, chickens? We're talking about chickens. We haven't seen you for a year. And she said, David said, well, what's the problem? And she said, well, they're not laying. Why are they not laying? And he said, I don't know, Margot, why are they not laying? She said, Frida, why do you think they're not laying? What do you think it is? What do you think they need? The whole evening was spent talking about these chickens.
Margot also gave me the advice I said, well, that person hasn't been really very nice, and you were so kind to them. She said, Wayne, it's easier to be nice. Meaning, get on top of it. Be polite when somebody's insulting you. And that was, she taught me the etiquette of life. And that remains with me always.
You aspired to be like her because she was such a fantastic role model.
The zest she had when she was on that stage. It was like she was dancing for the very last time. She knew this could be her last time.
I will just always admire her for being what, for me, was the queen that led our classical ballet.
No, I mean, we're lucky to have had her in our lives.
She should never be forgotten, and it shouldn't just be, oh, well, she was a famous ballerina. It's great that she'll be honored by having this competition in her honor.